Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video, and this time we'll be looking at another recent game that I played against our fellow chess club member. So I think it's best that, I take it from my opponent's perspective and try to look at his alternatives to the game. So in the game I was white and our fellow chess club member was black. So d4, d5. So this is symmetrical queen's pawn opening. And what we both do is we both control the center, right? Both keep these squares in touch. Then I play bishop f4. Play bishop f4 to reinforce this square, maybe get the knight out, right? But I have something tricky planned, and you'll see it in the coming moves. So my opponent plays knight c6, and it's completely fine since I want to put some pressure on this square, maybe put some pressure on the pawn, right? So then I play knight up. And now I have the sneaky move, right? So every time this knight is here, you always got to realize the weaknesses to black's position are these two pawns. It's either the one closest to the king that I'll be attacking, or the one closest to the queen on the side of the queen, in which you can fork the king and the rook, right? If this pawn is taken, you fork the king and the rook. But if this pawn is taken, you fork the rook and the queen. So both of these pawns are so valuable to defend. So there's this fried liver attack. It would be on this pawn, but now since I decided to push the d pawn up, now I'll be doing the same thing, getting the bishop, getting the knight in. Now let's look back. Let's say e4 happened, right? e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. Now in this position we're aiming towards this guy, right? So let's say black played here. I will play this, and I will attack this pawn. Now let's look at our game position. d4, d5. It's similar. Do you realize that I'm basically doing the same thing that I showed? In this position, I'm attacking this pawn. But in this position, I'm attacking this pawn. So now, in the theory in this line, after I play this knight to g5 to attack this pawn with the bishop and the knight, the main move is to play d5. And that's to distract this line, right? You put this pawn in the way, it's like a blockade. It's like somebody delivered the pizza and you have to eat the pizza before you do anything else. So this, I guess, is sort of a distraction. He's been blinded. He's lost his vision, right? It's gone. So just like in this position, the best move would be to play this move. And, right, it blocks the bishop. So always watch out when the bishop is here, the knight is here, or in this position, the bishop is here and the knight is here, right? Just always watch out for these weaknesses. And in this position, always watch out for this c7 pawn and the f7 pawn. Those two pawns are the most weak usually in the opening phase of the game. So e6 happened, and since I was playing on the white side, I wanted to give our fellow chess club member a chance, right? It's not really directly easy to see that I'm attacking. It's something that, it takes time and you think about it. And at first you're like, doesn't make sense. I have a queen. It's so powerful compared to these two pieces. But all that matters is that in this position, two pieces are attacking the pawn, but this queen is the only one defending. So I can take this for free, and in fact, this is the best move because I fork the king and the rook, and if the queen takes back, the bishop is there to assist. So this square is extremely tricky. So I decide to give my opponent a chance to either spot this move, or I give my opponent a chance to maybe develop the bishop here and try to block this line, right? So that's something that I'm trying to enforce. That, open thinking and really trying to find it in an independent sense, because the way you progress is by finding moves, by yourself, by discovering, by looking more into the game. So I played e3, and I was hoping that my opponent see the bishop d6 and block this boy, right? It's sort of like he's ready for his target, but you go in to distract him. So, unfortunately, my opponent thought, let's go here. And this is not the greatest move, but this is an attempt to see that, okay, I have two pieces now defending what was once attacked by two pieces. But the trade is not exactly fair. Like, for example, if knight takes and queen takes, bishop takes and king takes, now we count the pieces. Black will have 4 of these pieces, white will have 2, but the only difference is that white has an extra queen. And the queen is the most powerful lady on the board. So you always want to keep her. But okay, so I played h3. I was hoping that maybe this move would be spotted, and I wanted to tell my fellow chess club member during the game to find a defensive resource in the position before, right? I want my opponent to find maybe this resource, or even just knowing the idea of deflection that's there. So I decided to give him a move, right? Give him extra moves, and he played e5. And I'm like, this is really good because my opponent, or our chess club member, understood the concept of really deflecting this bishop from its threat, right? So by playing pawn up, you're throwing him off guard. You're just taking him out of position. So now the pawn takes knight e4, perfectly fine because I'm threatening the knight. So knight e4, and then I relaunch the threat again. And now, using that previous idea that I once again open up my bishop and my knight to this pawn, my opponent finds the move. It's wonderful. I like it when my students are able to really find the move and take the time to dig in to see, maybe before I didn't see this move, but now I see it. So now bishop d6 takes, and I can easily win this knight here with queen takes d5, right? Chekaruski picks up, let's say, bishop e6, and now I pick up the knight. And I can easily do that, but I didn't want to hurt my opponent that much. So I played knight f3. I wanted to show that although material's important, I wanted to show one of our opening principles, right? We want to also develop. But I gotta say, this move is certainly much, much better. But I'm saying that development is something I want to showcase. I want to be able to say, okay, if I'm ever down a pawn, then development will help me. If I put my pieces into the game, that's what will make me win. And teamwork is all about that. If everyone gets in the loop, if everyone does their part, we're going to get somewhere. So, bishop e6. And now I get my other bishop out. And at this point I told my opponent to rearrange his pieces. Try to get this king in a better spot, right? This king looks clumsy here, and the goal is to get the king here. And that's not easy because you want this rook to get out. So I would say the best move here is rook e8. Keeps the line on the knight, and although you might think, okay, what is wrong with this move that my opponent played rook f8? Well, as I demonstrated in the game, you take, pawn takes, and now I have this killer blow, knight g5. And what this does is I fork the king and the bishop. And this forces the king to move to the side to defend this bishop. But that was something really hard to see, that this knight was previously defending this square, right? And it's really easy to miss those follow-up moves. So it's all about practicing the game and really discovering what you find on your own. It's all about that curiosity, the search for more, right? But sometimes it's just really hard to force yourself, and I completely get it. So takes, pawn takes, knight g5, forking these two, they're looking like pancakes, all laid down. King g8, and I like the goal. I like that we were able to rearrange like in a castling formation, right? We were able to castle, but unfortunately this move does lose the bishop. So what I did is I gave my opponent some time, and I wanted development, right? I wanted to see maybe if our chess club member could rearrange his pieces quite well. Queen d7, but then I decided to trade. I'm up, and now the queen is hanging. Okay, so then I wanted to give my opponent at this time to rearrange the pieces again, right? Doing a great job. Maybe you should have played bishop f5, activate the bishop a little bit, because now if you put it back to where it started from, then lone rook will feel bad, right? He's going to feel bad for not coming out. So I got my rook out, and because I was able to control this file, it just really felt overwhelming for these somewhat undeveloped pieces. So I guess the moral of the story really started with this tricky move, right? This was something to worry about, and then dealing with the threat just really cost a lot of time. And missing this fork, it was really understandable because it's not something you see as a beginner. And it's all about this activity, all these small snippets that made me win the game. So thank you for listening, and I hope you really tune in for more content. Bye.